This video is unbiased and I have no political agenda. A couple of days ago I visited a small city in northern Italy. As you can see from these pictures, it looks lovely. Small streets, the central square, the coffee houses and little shops, and a lot of people enjoying their lives. I think that is what you expect from the northern Italy in general. But there is one caveat. What if I told you that this is Venice? Yes, this is actually Venice. And you might say, it doesn't look like it. And especially for the people who already visited Venice. People might ask where are the gondolas, the many various canals and the beautiful buildings. Well, this is Venice. I'm in Mestre. It is one of the communes of the city of Venice. And it's important to know about this fact, because unfortunately this place hides the demographic data of Venice as we know it. Granted, I have nothing personal against Mestre. I mean, I've been in this place for around 2 hours, so it would be really stupid to make a conclusion, but when I strolled from the train station to the city center, it wasn't a pleasant experience. So if you're a tourist and you for some reason want to stay in Mestre because Venice is expensive, be careful walking around in the evening and at night. It's not a well-loved city by the Italians. I planned to film this video with a nice background in Mestre, filming various things, but because I only have 2 brain cells and 1 battery, I didn't film Mestre properly, so excuse me for that. Outside of the city center, it's just a town. You'll not be amazed by the beauty of the city if you are used to this kind of things. So on this map you can see clearly the distinction of the central island, the outer parts of Mestre, Marghera, Faro Veneto, and little islands surrounding Venice. When people want to visit Venice, they don't care about these outer parts, they only care Venice and probably Murano and Burano, which is a nice islands surrounding Venice. So firstly, I decided to walk from the Mestre to the Venice and to see how is it living in this city. By walking around the town, you can clearly see the Venetian architecture and the Venetian echoes in terms of the lines, the symbol of Venice, and of course the trams and trains and buses, with the destination being Venice. But outside of the city center is just a town. It's a newer, it has a lot of streets, a lot of newer buildings, nothing outstanding. Actually, on my way to the Venice, around 40 minutes when I walked towards the shore, I noticed that I already passed Mestre and entered an highway intersection. There were a lot of traffic coming by because Mestre is a connecting point between the North Italy and the South Italy. And there is an airport nearby, so a lot of people who want to visit Venice come to this airport, which is located near Mestre. After the highway intersection, I entered a wide and spacious park, and to be honest, I liked this park far more than I enjoyed Mestre. And it's not a usual scene when you live in the city center, because there is a beauty in the small and cozy parks, but when you walk in these plain fields, there is something about it that truly magnificent. So back to the Mestre. As a defense for the idea that Mestre, Faro Veneto, Marghera is connected with Venice and considered one city, you might say that every city has its own inner parts and outer parts. What's the difference here? Especially big metropolitans like London, like Madrid. But in this case, there is a clear distinction and contrast between Venice and the mainland. It feels like 2 or 3 cities are forcibly glued together. And by glued together, I mean this bridge. The bridge was built in 1846, the railway section. And in 1933, the transportation bridge was built. The reason was simple. Venice was too weak and fragile, like you, living with the parents. Only after the 1910s it was decided to Venice to join with Marghera, Mestre and Faro Veneto. to sustain itself during the economic expansion of Italy in early 1910s. So, during the 1917 through 1926, these regions were combined, creating this monster amalgamation like an Austro-Hungarian Empire. Interesting fact, Mestre applied for separation from Venice 5 times, the last one being in 2019, so few years ago. Well, actually 5 years ago. So anyway, 66% voted for separation, but only 21% of the total population voted for it. So this idea gets scrapped. So finally, we're here in Venice. This is the city many people want to visit at least once in their life. There you can see the mainland and the bridge, and I will not dive into the in-depth history of Venice, because you'll find plenty of videos and books and articles online, and from people who know much better than anything I will spew right now. But I can butcher the history of Venice and explain it to you in a few seconds. The first Venetians built the city on an island and connected them together by building the structures, the fundament and blocks. It rose to a micro empire and eventually to an empire, gathering politicians, architects, religious people and people of culture. And during the peak of Venetian Empire, it gathered in this city of Venice around 180,000 people. And I ask you, how many people live in Venice right now? In real Venice, here on an island? 200,000? 500,000? 100,000? At least 5? Less than 50,000 people. And it's getting lower each week, as you can see from this graph. That's 150% decrease, even from the 1950s. Because of the Mestre and the auto parks in general, it looks like it's much higher than it's supposed to be, around 250,000 people, even though it's declining too. Because Mestre, Marghera and Favre Veneto is an industrial point and a connecting point, as we said before. But the historic part of Venice, which was preserved for more than 600 years, which attracted so many people around the world and is considered one of the most beautiful cities, is dying. Of course, you might say that I over-dramatize and make it seem too serious. I believe that the culture of a nation is not only the buildings, landmarks and structures, because that's what we call tangible heritage. Venice is suffering from something greater, the loss of tradition, culture and people. Something that general public dismiss about and say that it's not that important as buildings and the beauty of structures. Now, understanding the geography, let's ask one simple question. Why people are leaving Venice? Some people might say it's because it's sinking or drought or other climate-related news. In my opinion, these climate-related news are usually made by big conglomerates and publishing companies, because this kind of news are easy to make and are made usually to push the negative. Plus, by pushing this climate-related news, they will get ESG scores. ESG scores determines if this company in the future will get investment. And what that means? A future and better paycheck. The word climate became some kind of a buzzword, like, why do you feel sad? Well, climate. Well, why gas prices up? Well, climate interrupts the petroleum supply from the hated country called Russian Federation. The Europe, despite sanctioning them, still buys Russian gas and petroleum, but in less quantity. Why people suddenly falling on the streets? Well, climate. I dug out this monthly change of weather of the most hot months of the July from 1973 to 2023, so around 50 years. Before I get fact-checked, so here, much better. Climate awareness friendly. Indeed, Venice is really hot. Even in September, right now it's around 30 degrees, but it's coupled with it being really humid. The humidity of this place in the summer is something to survive. The whole Veneto region is sitting on literal swamp. The Italians would agree with me. The mosquitoes and humidity are really difficult. When people want to come to Italy and complain about the awful summer and experience, well, you should have read about this before coming to Venice and spending money for tickets. For the people who live here in Venice and in whole Veneto region, it's not really issue of why people are fleeing from Venice. So this leads us to the main issue of Venice, the main source of income of Venice, the tourism. Venice attracts more than 1 million people. It's more than Madrid. It's more than many countries in Europe and the whole world. And right now it solely depends on it. I would even say it's really addicted to tourism, like a Chinese person on opium in the 19th century. Most of the summer is indeed overcrowded, even in September, even in December. On these videos that I took in Venice, you see that there is not a lot of tourists. I filmed further away from these tourist attractions because I really don't like tourists. Well, call me a hypocrite because I am a hypocrite. You can call me an anti-touristite for whatever reason. And of course you might say that tourism is a good thing for Venice. Yes, I would agree. Monetarily it's a good thing. But this leads us to the demand in housing. Just look at this picture of available Airbnbs in the center of Venice. The center being the whole Venice because it's an island. Venetians see this as a perfect opportunity to make a living because the demand is huge. You're telling me I can just rent my place for 100 euros per day minimum for tourists every day and not even have a job? Of course, I mean. And because of that, everything is much more expensive than any other part of Italy. Well, not drastically, but enough for people to notice and hit their pockets. Of course, you still can find places, if you know how to look, where it's cheaper and much more livable. But in general, the market is really tourist-oriented. I talked to a wonderful elderly woman when I went to supermarket and chatted with her in Italian as much as I could. She told me that her and everyone she knows about this issue about housing market, demographic issue, and Venice being difficult to live in. So most of the people who stay here are elderly people. People who don't want to comply to this tourist-oriented market and people who don't want to flee to other parts of Italy. So unfortunately, after they pass, most likely than not, their relatives and children either rent these places for tourists or sell these properties, which probably are rented to tourist attractions. I've read that government has meetings every year and say stuff like, we are really concerned about this issue. We are here to listen to the Venetian public. Okay, they don't talk like that. A few years ago they announced that they would tax 5 euros per day from tourists who want to stay in Venice. And it actually already put in place. So when you want to rent accommodation, rent a place, hotel, you'll be charged 1 to 5 euros per day. Or I should say per night, because it's hotel. In no way it makes a tourist to think that if he should visit Venice or not, because 5 euros is nothing for people who want to spend a lot of money coming to other countries. The tax money will go to the city maintenance and landmark repayment and structure repayment. I understand that the government is trying to improve the quality of the buildings and maintain the beauty of Venice. I understand that and respect that. Because so many people pass through these trees, through these places and magnificent cathedrals, these things must be maintained. Tourists bring so much money. The Venetian businessmen and little stores are the main beneficiaries too. Every business in the center of Venice is solely depends on tourism. Venetians who are not participating in this tourism business are only a fraction, a small fraction of the taxes income of Venice. We know that heritage is not only the buildings and structures, it's citizens of this place too. Get rid of the people, get rid of the culture. Well, call me old-fashioned. Look at the people who traveled from Italy to USA. bringing traditions, family and culture, because they didn't have anything else besides some clothes and family. And to be honest, don't only think about people from the past, of the past centuries and historical figures. It is in your DNA, in my DNA too. And let me tell you, Venetians have plenty of it. They have lace work, pipe making, the fishing art, the food art, and of course the Venetian language. Before Italian language was standardized, the Venetian language really flourished in this place. And to be honest, I was shocked that Venetian language doesn't have any protective status. Some of the Italian minority language have one, but not Venetian. It has language recognition from the regional council, but not the official status from Italy. On my way back to the train station, I talked to a gondolier and asked him one question: that is tourism an issue? I know that it's kind of unfair to ask this question to a gondolier who is making his living from tourists. He's making around 80 to 100 euros per ride. But he said that it's a reality that Venetians should adapt to, because nothing can be changed, and as long as Venetians will teach their children about their culture and traditions, they will maintain this Venetian heritage. I want to be this kind of hopeful about the future, but when you see that a lot of people are moving out from Venice, the heritage is not preserved, and for example, Venetian language is not protected, I feel that in 1-2 generations it would be much worse than today. And what can the government do? Restrictions on tourists, these kind of things were tested in the past for a month, for 2 months, but I believe this kind of restrictions on such large scale would be a managerial problem. And at the end of the day, who will benefit from this kind of stuff? Only people who live in Venice and who want Venice to be preserved, but not people who are making a living from Venice, especially tourism business. And some people want a change in terms of expansion of routes where tourists can go, like further into the islands of Venice, making more investment into these kind of things. I believe that by expanding the routes, you just enlarge the problem, because tourists who want to visit Venice is basically infinite comparing to a supply that Venice has, a little island. And of course, the government can artificially increase the number of the residents by dumping a lot of people in the island of Venice. Migrants, students, workers, everyone. And there will be Venetians too, right? If you believe that majority of migrants would respect the traditions and culture of the other people, you're either delusional or you speak on behalf of other people. And to be honest, this sounds like
fucking commie gobbledygook.
UNESCO, by the way, is considering declaring the Venice as an endangered territory. UNESCO is saying that Italy doesn't preserve Venice as it should be, and Italy blames UNESCO that they are not helping. So back and forth, nothing is done. However, I'm cautious what UNESCO means by declaring it as endangered territory and what actions it wants the government to do. We can surely trust the United Nations. If people right now say that Venice feels dull and not like a living city, imagine if it would be handled like a museum. Although UNESCO has articles on intangible heritage, I think in this particular case, in the case of Venice, they are more concerned about the landmarks and the buildings and not so much about the people who live in Venice. Call me crazy, but I think people in the power would only benefit if all the people from Venice would move out from Venice. It's a less problem to worry about. It's tax cuts, because a lot of hospitals and public service buildings will be freed and the money can go towards improving the quality for tourists. Maybe the government will try to give lands for people from Venice to buy out their properties here in Venice. And I think many Venetians would only say yes, because no one wants to live in Venice, aside from people who want to profit from renting a place from Venice. And what about some actions from Venetians? There are some movements here and there. They are still present, but they are not heard as it should be. There are some articles on how Venetians are protesting and have gatherings and really voicing out what they're thinking. I believe that the voice can be created, but this noise without any particular solution can be harmful, because it creates a power vacuum and it can be filled with people who don't have the same intention as you do and as people hope for. And to be honest, not you, not me have a direct solution and are not able to change the situation in Venice.
Look, it's a
cigarette?
I was going to say lighthouse.
I think even not majority of Italians can change the situation. Only one group of people is powerful enough: Venetians. But as long as people are fine with that, the tourism is the main bread and butter for a lot of these people. They are feeding their families, the economy is growing. Why should anything change? And what's to complain about? I don't want to come into your neighborhood and demand actions for a place I don't even live in. That's what government does. I just found this demographic death of Venice a little bit sad. I made this video to inform you and myself about this particular situation that is happening in Venice. And of course, I have my own gaps and my own bias. Of course I do. I hope you notice that. And currently no one has a direct solution, only assumptions of how things might go if some actions would have taken place. But if you're interested, here is the action that I would be in favor for. Separate Mestre and whole mainland from Venice, to expose the real problem that Venice right now has, the population decline. The mainland joined with Venice when Venice was fragile and difficult to sustain itself. But right now, with a flourishing tourism, with economy booming, it can manage itself without the mainland. And of course, maybe economists would disagree with me because they know far much better than a person from the internet. What I may advise you? Should you stay away from Venice? No. If I will say that you should stay away from Venice, I don't think that it can be managed and I will just divert people from Venice. Because I want people to see Venice, because it's a wonderful place. You enjoy every second you'll be spending in this wonderful little town. From the palazzas to the narrow streets. As you can see from these pictures and videos, I filmed far away from the city center, and you can enjoy it too, by just going against where tourists are going to. And you'll enjoy the Venice as it should be. You'll enjoy a real Venice, as a maritime city of fishermen and merchants, living their lives and raising their children. And probably you'll see the last decades of this living city, and not a tourist city. And people look at me and may say that, why do you care about so much? Why do I care about this place's future and how it may go? I don't know. Probably Venetians who have long past gone told me to make this honoring video about this wonderful city. May God give you a blessed day, and goodbye.